Hey, Future Chris here. We don't usually do this in the podcast, but this is such a new film that we're doing. We just wanted to point out that there will be spoilers ahead.
Hello and welcome to the Movie Bunker podcast. It's me, Matt.
Hey, it's me, Chris.
And there's no pregnant pause for the guests for today. We're alone.
Yeah, we basically decided that we ought to jump on to our respective interwebs and talk about a fantastic movie that we both watched by accident at the weekend, and everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, and we had to go on it quick because the rating's going up. So, like, literally, when I first watched this, saw this, and I thought, this is definitely one of our podcast films. It was like a 5 point something on IMDb. It's already up to a 6.7, which makes it borderline not for us anymore.
Well, yeah, and our other sort of marker is Rotten Tomatoes, as you'll know, and it was a bona fide splatter back at the weekend, and now it's 61%. So we are basically just clinging on to this one by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah, we're riding the wave.
But yeah, it's Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga, by the way, if you didn't already know. But before we dive into that, let's do some housekeeping. So if you like the podcast or you're new to the podcast, make sure you like and subscribe and download the back catalogue. And if you're really enjoying it so far, leave us a lovely 5-star review, because it helps us climb that ladder in terms of every man and his dog, woman, child has got a podcast now, thanks to lockdown, COVID. And so it'd be great to have your support on there. And also, if you want to support us financially, we have a Patreon site. So just look at the pinned tweet on our Twitter page and our Facebook page, and you can donate if you wish and help us subscribe to our provider. It just, every little helps.
My wife said the other day, she was like, my friend wants to start a podcast, wants to know if you could give them some advice. And I was like, are they white? And he's like, yes. Are they male? Yeah, yes. And are they middle class? And yes. Tell them not to bother.
So on Saturday, to paint the picture about this movie, on Saturday I sat down. My wife said, let's watch something. And I said, well, it's when it's late, it's like 9 o'clock at night. You don't really want to be putting a movie on at 9 o'clock at night, unless it's something lighthearted. Well, I said, we could do this Eurovision thing because it's supposed to be, a bit of fun.
I bet in the back of your mind, it was like, I could probably do this for the podcast. I could podcast watching.
Absolutely. So we put it on. 2 hours later, we're humming and laughing along to the songs. But how did you get on to watching it?
Kind of the same. Yeah, so I was knocking around on a Saturday, and the kids kind of like a family movie in the afternoon, and I'm like, and I looked up. I did some research to see what kind of 12 it was, because some 12s are horrible, and some 12s are, Harry Potter's a 12 for fuck's sake. So I thought this will be fun. So as a family, we sat down and watched it, and my kids loved it, especially all the swearing and the sex talk.
Right.
Ever since we were children, we've had one dream.
Winning
the Eurovision Song Contest.
All right, everyone. I am Lars. This is Sigrid. We are Fire Saga.
Who wants to hear a Eurovision song?
All of Iceland think
We are a joke.
That's not true.
And my father is ashamed of me.
No, he's not.
He looked me into the eyes and said, I am ashamed of you.
Maybe he was drunk.
He said, and you might think that I'm drunk, but I am dead sober.
Idiot.
Officially, Fire Saga will be representing Iceland at Eurovision this year.
I hate them.
Absolutely terrible. They're old, disgusting people. But we have no choice.
So we're in. Yep.
42 countries, hundreds of performers, and a worldwide audience of 180 million. This is Eurovision.
Wow.
You have to watch that guy. He is a sex player.
Hey, looking good.
Secret, very beautiful voice.
Thank you.
We are a duo that will never be separated. George Michael said something about other Wham guy. No one even knows his name.
Andrew Ridgeley.
You have to stay focused. We need to win.
What are you doing?
I just want my ding-dong to look bigger than what is really there.
Smart.
Yeah.
I could do a camel.
Do a classic camel. It's never out of style.
Yeah.
Let me do the plot synopsis for you. Anyone who's living under a rock for the last few days might not know about this movie. But anyway, when aspiring musicians Lars and Sigrid are given the opportunity to represent their country at the world's biggest song competition, they finally have a chance to prove that any dream worth having is a dream worth fighting for.
This is something where it probably has a lot more kind of nuance and traction in Europe. And for anybody that's seen the crazy fuckfest, which is the Eurovision Song Contest, like as an American watching this, if they're not into the Eurovision Song Contest, which I imagine is niche at best out there, then this must just seem like a fever dream. But it is normal. Like, this shit could happen on the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
There is nothing unusual about any of the performances that you see in this film.
Do you watch the Eurovision Song Contest when it's on? Not the sorry, can I just say that again, because I didn't mean to sound like Sean Connery. Do you listen to the Eurovision Song Contest, Matthew?
Sometimes I watch the Song Contest. I was never a fan. And then when we lived abroad, and someone threw a massive Eurovision party, and we thought, this is a bit strange. And we went along, and there was drinking games and all sorts of sundry activities that went along with Eurovision. And I had a whale of a time. And subsequently since do tend to catch it if it's on television, because it is crazy. It's nuts. Do you watch it?
Yeah, I went for a stage of watching it for quite a few years and got quite excited about it, and used to get a little bit tipsy on my own. My wife's never been interested on it really, but I just found the whole spectacle and the campness quite interesting. One year, I actually got into one of the bands. It was like they were from, where were they from? Somewhere, European. And
not necessarily these days.
They were called the Common Linnets, and I think the Netherlands, and they came second, and they were a nice little country like duo. And they had a lovely little band with a pedal steel guitar, which I'm well into anyway. And I bought the album, and the album was fantastic. So it's,
Really?
yeah, sad.
Bought music from a band that was in the Euro.
Yeah. The Common Linnets, they're quite good. They sound like any very, Radio 2, Bob Harris country band that you would listen to. And, I like a bit of that sort of stuff. So, I've stopped watching it recently, but only because I don't think they've had sort of probably a shit film to watch instead. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it when it's on. I think it's good fun, and I think everything's very good humoured and
it's all quite twee, isn't it? And Graham Norton makes it a lot of fun. And Graham Norton's obviously in this film as himself.
As himself, yeah. Well, let's do the cast, because this is a Will Ferrell joint, and this is his idea. I think he wrote it or was co-writer on it, and is a big Eurovision fan. So he's front and centre. He plays Lars Eriksson. You've got Rachel McAdams, who does a fantastic turn, I think, as Sigrid, his partner. Dan Stevens, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Piers Brosnan. We get a 2-for-1 with Natasha Demetrio and Jamie Demetrio, who turn up, brother and sister in real life, who turn up in this movie, which was a really good surprise, because they're great actors, comedic actors as well, and writers. We get a lot of authentic Icelandic actors in this, which bring that kind of dark noir.
You'd recognise them from a lot of the Scandi noir crime drama, right?
Yeah, and the bits where they're sort of chewing over whether this band should make it in or be listened to at all, I've got that real kind of gravitas to them. They really frame them, even to where the offices they're sat in, really kind of resemble that kind of stark, minimalistic sort of spaces. Yeah. And they all do really well in it. And I would probably do them all a disservice if I tried to sort of pronounce all their names. But I think that element of the film is fantastic. I think they all do really well. But let's dive into Will Ferrell.
Ooh.
Sorry. Obviously, it's his pet project, and he's sort of.
But he got introduced, didn't he, via his wife? Because his wife's Swedish, and she was a big fan of the Eurovision and made him watch it, and then he was just like hooked. It looks like one of his films without even touching it. I was a little bit. Well, the reason I jumped to this, because I thought it'd be a podcast film, is because of obviously the last stinker of Holmes and Watson, which should have worked. It should have been brilliant, because it had him, John C. Reilly, and a myriad of Steve Coogan and, you know, everybody in it and directing and involved in it turned out to be this on paper probably shouldn't work, but does work.
I think ultimately the reason is the subject matter is so bonkers that it outweighs any of the other crappiness, because if you're on board with Eurovision, then you're already going to see all the little nods and winks to it, and you're going to go with the flow.
But they're not nods and winks, are they? They're just massive klaxons. It's like,
yeah.
Here's another person that used to be in Eurovision. And another one. Oh, look, someone's playing a piano in the street. But he's from Eurovision.
Yeah, he was. He was the winner either last year or the year before.
Yeah, so there you go. So it's weird.
Will Ferrell was kind of doing his was it a Blades thing he did, the ice skating film he did,
Blades of Glory.
It's got like elements of that, his character, the hair, and his whole kind of he's too old to be in this game.
That's actually a really good point, and I think when we did Holmes and Watson, this is what we touched upon, is that in Will Ferrell's successful films, the character that he inhabits and plays is the center of the joke, right? He's not in on the joke, and they have a naivety and kind of an innocent sweetness about them. Whereas in Holmes and Watson, it reversed. It would sort of like turn the joke on everyone else. He was no longer sort of like the butt of his own joke. Whereas again, in this film, he's back to being, someone that is just awful at what their dream is for, but somehow managing to get closer and closer to it. And you're rooting for them because they are so naive and so naive. Naive. I'm channeling way in a Matt Berry there. They are naive. Close thy mouth, word witch, and get your ass over here.
So money supermarket.
Quite often when I read my children's story at night, slip into a quick Matt Berry just to amuse myself.
I'd love to slip into a Matt Berry.
And obviously, speaking of Natasha Dimitriou, she's obviously in the fabulous What We Do in the Shadows of Matt Berry, which I finished the other day, and is as a second season is so much better than the first.
That's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. And Jamie Dimitriou, we talked about him earlier on, but Staff Lets Flats. Have you ever seen that? I mean, that is just sublimely. It's off the charts in terms of how good that is. I don't know. That's not a very good sentence, but they're not doing it justice there.
There was a couple of those sort of Channel 4 comedy series which never really caught the imagination, like the IT crowds and the peep shows of the world. And I always think of Staff Lets Flats, and the other one was The Mimic, which were two like slow burn kind of comedy series which had something a little bit extra to them, which, like I say, never really grabbed people and got it, but they deserve watching. So weirdly in this podcast about this film, we'll recommend 2 TV series for you. What We Do in the Shadows and Staff Lets Flats. But he's great in this. I mean, he's got like about 3 lines and about 30 seconds on camera, but he kind of steals it while he's there.
And so does she when she comes on and does the kind of she's like the makeup and I don't know, choreographer or something, but the way she's just doing the sort of Eastern European broken English sort of thing, which is just nails fantastically.
Clear that we've enjoyed this film, and I don't think it's going to be any sort of like surprise at the end. We release it from the bunker, but I think that we have to. There are problems with this film. Namely, I think massively the runtime is it's got to be 40 minutes longer than it should be.
Oh yeah, definitely
bloated.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Matthew, this should have come in under 90 minutes comfortably. This should have been pushing the 90 minutes, because it's obvious. It's obvious there are threads in it that don't go anywhere, or there's bits that are picked up and dropped and sort of skewed and come back to later. There's a whole lot of subplots with Dan Stevens' character, and they don't really work. And there's long edits, I should say, when you're just longing for a cut. But it doesn't happen. And I think they could have, as you say, they could have shaved that sort of subplot of Dan Stevens trying to sort of steal Rachel McAdams' character somehow, or twist that kind of twisty love triangle plot that he had thing going on. That wasn't really necessary. They could have shaved that off or done something else with it, but kept all the musical bonkers numbers in, all the little nuanced bits with the elves, all the little quirky bits that made it work for me, and the silliness between the two, and the sort of, you know, the loveliness between the two of them, because they do work together on screen. And I think that's down to Rachel McAdams, to be honest. I mean, Will Ferrell wouldn't say he's dialing it in, but he's doing Will Ferrell, and he's doing it very well, I would say. But Rachel McAdams and Dan Stevens are completely they're going for it, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not holding back. I mean, but the main two of Lars, and I mean, even I kind of like the running joke of like when they kept saying like, "Oh, is this your sister?" And it was like, maybe not.
No, we don't think so.
Because Piers
probably
Brosnan
not.
Probably not. Yes, Pierce Brosnan plays his father, which I think is a good bit of casting as the unacceptably attractive dad who's obviously slept with him in town, and Will Ferrell's character's name is Lars Eriksson, which is obviously the son of Eric, and Eric's Pierce Brosnan, and Rachel McAdams is Sigrid Eric's daughter, which is it's obviously Eric's daughter. So kind of like they've kind of left this kind of thread there of like, are they actually brother and sister? And I think, you know, there was this burgeoning sort of love story, mostly forced by the secret side of things. You know, constantly he's sort of cutting it short of the kiss, much to my 7-year-old's delight, because she doesn't like the kissing. So yeah, it was very much like the Princess Bride in that instance. But so they kept cutting short. But I mean, obviously he's saying it's for the music and that. But I think he really believes that there's a good chance that she's his sister.
They're related, yeah. I think it's great seeing Rachel McAdams do this. Sorry, watching her sort of commit to the role. To play opposite Will Ferrell when he's doing this sort of stuff, it might be quite challenging, because, you know, you kind of know he's going to steal the scene, or at least attempt to do his, you know, a degree of, you know, ad-libbing and that sort of thing, which sometimes makes the cut or doesn't. But you can tell she's just fully endorsed, and I think that really helps to have a dual lead that is kind of on a par with him in terms of comedy chops, because she can do really good comedy, as we've seen in other movies that she's done. Yeah,
it needs a bit of a stroke, because you know Will Ferrell's going to go full slapstick, and there is of the three, four sort of stage show numbers, something horrendously physically funny happens to Will Ferrell in all of them, getting ever more grandiose in the size and shape of them, culminating in the hamster wheel of doom, which which made me wince and laugh at the same time. Because, and as I say, I would say to anybody with young children, I think to themselves, maybe I'll just do give it a watch first, because there's a good 10 minutes of sex talk in it, which is awkward, and you probably want to fast forward through if you've got some young uns watching.
What did you think of Dan Stevens as the Russian Alexander Lemtov?
I thought it was much better than he was in The Beast, The Beauty and the Beast. Brilliant, wasn't it? It was just like you say, it was bristling. It was a bristling machismo, but with the underlying love for Kevin Swain.
His hair, I mean, it was magnificent. I mean, we're both follically challenged. I don't know if the listeners are aware, but there you go. You are now, but we're both on the no hair side of having hair. His hair was glorious, and he looked like a lion. And his song was about Lion of Love or something, wasn't it? It was fantastic. Yeah. I would turn for that guy. So and Pierce Brosnan as an older bit of
fluff. What are you? Something for the mums? What are you trying to say here?
Well, even Pierce Brosnan was an absolute dish in this as well, isn't he? I mean,
everyone in this film is gloriously attractive.
But the older he gets, he's just growing into that beard and that grey, and he just looks so chiseled. Yeah. He's such a cool man, and he's playing this dead straight as well. Even the little nuanced bits of him, you know, he's still obviously grieving for, you know, Will Ferrell's mum and his wife. Obviously, that's kind of a really nice little touch at the very beginning, obviously, because that she died at very young, and when he was very young, and that's why he's recluse and this clinging on to the idea of, being obsessed with being in Eurovision and making it as a Eurovision artist after watching ABBA play in like the 70s. And you can completely believe that would have been something that would have spurred somebody on and just sort of taken him into some sort of dream and fantasy. And Pierce Brosnan over the years being just completely brought down by the embarrassment of his 50-year-old son still doing the fantastic pop songs like Volcano Man, which is amazing.
Shall we bang into the songs then?
Let's bang these songs in. So there's lots of fantastic musical numbers, and even the two main songs that Fire Saga have are duo, something about being a duo, their main song, and then they've got another song which obviously they win with. Well, no, they didn't win with because they're disqualified in the end, but their personal song that they've written, or that she's written, that he persuades her to perform at the end, which is really nice. It had like an element of The Greatest Showman to this movie, where
I thought I heard a bit. Well, they obviously did the hits by numbers for that last one, because there's a bit of Adele in there.
Yeah.
With My Town.
Yeah, like the hometown, and she sings in Icelandic because she's always wanted to, and it comes together lovely at the end. And that song is, I don't know. Now, if you want to look at it, if you're a bit of a snob, that's a good song. I'm sorry, and it was a goosebump song. And
that song would have won Eurovision in most years, unless it's sung by a British person. Which, but Dan Stevens makes an aside to it. It's like, there's the UK. Good song, but no one likes them, so nil point.
yeah, which is true. But yeah, what did you think of because I've been singing and humming Ya Ya Ding Dong ever since I watched it on Saturday.
Well, before we get into Ya Ya Ding Dong, there was the song Off, or whatever it's called, in the middle.
Yes.
And you know what I'm like, Chris, and I my superpower is to feel everybody's embarrassment for them.
Yeah,
and I was off the charts with it, because I just felt so bad for everybody that doesn't have that embarrassment gene. I just, it's like 1,000 voices cried out at once, and I felt their combined embarrassment just lumping on me.
Do you squirm then? Are you a squirmer?
Oh, I'm a squirmer. I'm like, oh no, they're singing to camera, and it's like, oh no, they forced that person in, because at that point, it's like a whole ensemble piece. It's just a pop video, right? It's just a Eurovision Best Hits pop video. It could
it's amazing.
A pre-roll for the Eurovision's next year. It could be like, I'm here. Before we get into the... so that's an whole bit of woke in there.
Tell for you there.
Before we get into that, here is a little ensemble.
What are they doing there?
And that's what they do. Like, people get out of cars, they're singing, they're all in their full finery. But I didn't.
But Will Ferrell's character, he's loving it, isn't he? He's like, what's going on? What is this thing? Oh yeah, it's that crazy thing we do. Yeah, it's like the song off, and he's lapping it up. He's auto-tuned to the max, isn't he, old Will Ferrell?
Since I share.
Weirdly though, Rachel McAdams is she's dubbed in all her singing by Molly Sandon, who's an Icelandic artist who's got a fantastic voice. But I had to think, is that Rachel singing? Because if it was, it would have been amazing. It blew my socks off, that did. But no, it wasn't. She was miming. The song off was brilliant. I love that sort of thing, and I didn't squirm. My wife can't even watch a Dragon's Den pitch without wanting to leave the room. But this for me was just sort of brilliant. I was like, lapping it up there like some idiot. It might have been the Thatcher's haze that was taking effect, to be honest with you, by that night. Yes, that's Thatcher's haze.
We need a new drink sponsor.
We do. I love that bit. Ya Ya Ding Dong. So that's
Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Ding Dong.
But what did you think of the Ding Dong song?
Well, it's an earworm, that's for sure, and it's for all of you people out there with smart speakers. It's out there and it's available on Amazon. You can just ask Alexa to play you Ya Ya Ding Dong, and off it goes straight away. And my kids have been running around playing it non-stop and singing it today. And Chris, you asked me a question before I got started to have a little look at the lyrics, because you thought it might be something that's a little bit on the risque side. I'm like, no, it's just ya ya ding dong. Should I read some of the lyrics?
Well, yeah, I can't believe you did not take on board any of the sexual innuendo, and you've let your children run around singing ya ya ding dong for the whole weekend. Yeah,
Right,
read the lyrics, man.
When I feel your gentle touch and things are going our way, I want to spill my love on you all day, all day. Yeah, ding dong, ding dong. My love for you is growing wide and long. This is the bit they know the lyrics to as well. Yeah, ding dong. I swell and burst when I see what we've become. Yeah, ding dong, ding dong. Come, my baby, we can get love on. Yeah, ding dong. When I see you, I feel a ding dong.
Don't print the lyrics for your children to sing along to.
Wow, love expands when I'm with you. Oh. The elves. I mean, we can't go without mentioning the wonderful elf twist.
Yeah,
and I felt there was a clapback missing. They should have, like, the bit where the elf kills the mayor or prime minister, whatever he is, of Iceland. You don't see it. You just see a little door, one of the little doors shut from the little elf houses. And maybe at the start of this podcast, because this is an incredibly recent film, we should mention that there are spoilers.
Oh yeah. Spoiler alert.
So we'll maybe do a future Chris or future Matt voice warning of spoilers. But if they'd have just like caught a glimpse of, like, you know, a Will Ferrell elf, then I think it would have been an amazing clapback that no one could have ever have wanted anything more than that, surely.
Yeah, that's quite a good idea. Yeah, I don't know why they hadn't thought of that.
Why didn't they think of that?
I don't know.
It's Elf talking about elves. Come on.
But would it be a problem because of its species? Because he's an ELF elf, and they were elves, and they're very different, aren't they? Elves and elves are different.
They're a bit murdery, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very murdery. That whole subplot was, I thought, was completely bonkers, but very, very enjoyable.
There was like 4 or 5 really good jokes in this film, and there was 2 or 3 good set pieces of slapstick. And I feel to try and thread them together, they put in like 90 minutes of filler, and it's like it was a bit too much. I don't know if this would stand up to multiple watches. I'm not sure. I might have to give it a go in a couple of weeks because my kids loved it.
I don't think I could watch it again, but I would listen to the music.
Yeah, like you say, that last Ingrid song is good. It's just a lovely little pop song.
Yeah, and I'm a real music snob, and I have been for years, but I'm really warming up to things like that. And the Greatest Showman soundtrack, I just still find that quite enjoyable. I don't know what's happened to me. I don't know what's happened to me at all. These sort of things just eventually weigh you down.
Today about making you like things that you hate, and apparently it just takes 12 times. Just 12 times of eating something that you hate, you'll end up not hating, and then further, eatings will increase your like of it. So I think it must be the same with The Greatest Showman. I think you just got basically indoctrinated by your children.
Yeah,
over and over again, and that eventually you're just like, you're beaten into submission, and you're just like, yeah, fine, fuck it, I like it.
Well, even the soundtrack, like the non-songy songs, a lot of them is done by Sigur Rós, who I love that band. Hey, it's Future Chris here again. We forgot to read out all the tweets and social media gubbins in the podcast, so I was inserting it here. So on Instagram, Mike from Genuine Chit Chat Podcast said, I watched this the other night, and although it's dumb, I found it to be really good fun. Some genuinely funny moments and cool songs. Gareth Morgan on Twitter said, its heart is in the right place and it's a good send up, but at over 2 hours is about 20 minutes too long, which we totally agree. The Craggers, friend of the podcast, podcast says, watched it last night, throwaway fun with Will Ferrell's usual shtick, thankfully dialed back a bit. Dan Stevens is a hoot, but the script needed just one more polish to make it really click. Emily Murray, another friend of the podcast, I was pleasantly surprised by how sweet it was. It's not hugely funny, but makes up for it with charm and some absolute bops. Totally agree there. Matty Honeyman on Twitter said, watching it now, maybe Lionel Matthews should get in touch for a share of the royalties. Lyra Bellaquau, I hope I've pronounced that right. I'm fairly certain I haven't. But here we go. We loved it. Then again, we lived in Europe for years and laughed our way through the dozen schlocky Eurovisions. Americans who are unfamiliar with it may not get the joke. Only thing they missed was the crazy biased voting by countries that make out their biggest rivals. No points. And Baz Burton on Facebook said, wonderfully shite.
Yeah, so I think eventually we have to sort of decide what we're doing. I think it's fairly obvious. I mean, the elves have already spoken on this because they've secretly been bumping up the score, which is kind of what they do throughout the movie. They make things happen, don't they? So to the final. Yeah. So maybe it is the elves that are contributing to this. So they don't need us. They've got their own good luck. So the elves have basically talked to the bunker overlords and said, yeah, this is not a bunker movie, and everyone's been basically everyone's on board with it now. They've been sucker punched into submission.
There is a lot of good feeling for this film around the internet. Everywhere you see, people were like, "Oh my god, I watched it. I didn't want to like it. I ended up liking it." So there is a lot of love out there.
Everyone that has watched it will agree it's half an hour to 40 minutes too long, and even that is probably a stretch. But that aside, you have to just go with the flow, and if you enjoy everything camp and kitsch about Eurovision, or just being part of that, of being Europe basically, and the openness and the freedom of being able to move around from city to city and enjoying the delights of it without any restrictions, you're going to be well and truly on board. If you, for instance, weren't like that and you didn't believe in free movement and potentially having a nice time in those other countries with your fellow Europeans, you probably won't like it.
And then the piss taken of the Americans in it as well is brilliant. About
that leaves us with just jettisoning off the movie out of the bunker through the pipe. There it goes, and landing in everyone's Netflix cupboard.
Shot out of the ding dong.
Ding dong.
Where it goes.
Until the next time we speak, Matthew. I guess it's goodbye from me.
We're not the two boys. We're not doing this. I've said this before. You cannot just steal someone's exit.
Ding dong.
Goodbye. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, yeah. Don't know what that was. That was some insulting European accent.
It's fine.
Ding dong.
So middly, roughly Northern European that no one's going to be insulted because no one knows if it's for them or not. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.